My parents laughed when I dropped out to be a chef. Years later, they booked a table at a 3-star restaurant without knowing I was the owner. I watched them from the kitchen, then sent out their bill with a note. Dinner's on the dreamer you once laughed at. Growing up in our small suburban house, life was a script written by my parents. Get good grades, ace the SATs, go to college, land a stable job with a 401k, retire at 65. It was a blueprint for safety, etched into every dinner table conversation. My dad, a mid-level accountant with a perpetually furrowed brow, would lecture about smart choices while Mom nodded, her hands busy with dishes or knitting. By high school, they had my future mapped out: business degree, maybe law school, a life as predictable as the cul-de-sac we lived on. So when I told them at 19 that I was dropping out of college to become a chef, the room went silent. Then they laughed. It wasn't cruel, not exactly. It was the kind of laugh you give a kid who says they'll build a rocket to Mars with cardboard and glue. A patronizing chuckle, laced with pity. Cooking's a hobby, not a career, Dad said, leaning back in his recliner, his glasses reflecting the TV's glow. Mom was gentler but no less dismissive. You're so smart, honey. Why waste that on a kitchen? They thought it was a phase, a rebellion I'd outgrow. When I didn't back down, their smiles faded. If you're going to play chef, Dad said, voice flat, you can figure out how to pay rent and cook dinner at the same time. A week later, I was gone. 2 duffel bags stuffed with clothes, a cheap knife set, and a dog-eared copy of The Joy of Cooking. I left behind my childhood bedroom, posters of rock bands, a desk cluttered with half-finished essays, the faint smell of Mom's lavender candles. I crashed on a friend's futon in a cramped apartment that reeked of stale beer and regret. Then I moved to a shared studio with 3 strangers, where the walls were thin and the heat barely worked. I hustled 14-hour days in greasy diners, scrubbing grills caked with grease, mopping floors after late-night spills, flipping eggs for minimum wage, or sometimes just a plate of leftovers and a vague promise of a callback if a line cook quit. It was hell. My hands blistered from hot pans, my back ached from standing, my bank account hovered near zero. But in those sweaty, chaotic kitchens, I felt something I'd never felt at home. Fire. Not just the literal heat of the stove, but a spark in my chest. The thrill of nailing a perfect sear, the quiet pride of a customer's smile after a bite, the way a well-plated dish could tell a story. I wasn't good, not yet. My sauces broke, my knife cuts were uneven, my plating looked like a toddler's art project. But I wanted it, craved it. Every failure was a lesson, every burn a badge. I found mentors, or rather, they found me. Chefs who didn't teach so much as scream, their voices cutting through the clatter of pots. Chef Marco, a wiry Italian with a temper like a grease fire, made me chop onions until my eyes stung and my fingers cramped, shouting, "Precision, kid. You're not tossing confetti." Chef Lena, who ran a French bistro, taught me sauces but broke me down first, forcing me to remake a beurre blanc 10 times until it was silk. They were brutal, but they saw something in me, a hunger that matched their own. I absorbed everything. Techniques, flavors, the rhythm of a kitchen under pressure. It broke me, reshaped me, made me stronger. Years blurred together. I saved every dollar, stashing cash in a coffee can under my bed. Took side gigs, catering, food trucks, pop-up dinners and sketchy venues. Sold my beat-up Honda to buy better knives. Skipped vacations, holidays, birthdays. Missed my cousin's wedding, my aunt's funeral, my parents' 25th anniversary. I sent cards, but they went unanswered. My parents never called, never texted, never asked how I was. I was a ghost to them, a cautionary tale they'd tell their friends over coffee, our son, the dropout who thinks he's a chef. But I kept going. Because in the kitchen, I wasn't a failure. I was a dreamer with a plan. Update 1. The restaurant that changed everything. At 28, I took the leap. I opened my own place in a gritty corner of the city, where rent was cheap and dreams were cheaper. 6 tables, a tiny kitchen, exposed brick walls that smelled faintly of mildew. I called it Dream, one word, no frills, a nod to the kid who left home with nothing but a stubborn belief in himself. No PR, no investors, no safety net. Just a menu I'd rewritten 100 times, a loan that made my stomach churn, and hands that shook so badly on opening night I nearly dropped a plate. It was slow at first, painfully slow. Some nights, we served 3 tables, the silence broken only by the hum of the fridge and the clink of my sous chef's knife. I'd lie awake at night, calculating how long we could last before the bank took everything. But then came the first spark, a stranger's post on a local food blog, raving about our mushroom risotto. Life-changing, They called it, and I printed that review, taped it by the prep station, and stared at it when doubt crept in. It was the start of something. Word spread. Locals came, then foodies, then critics. A write-up in the city paper called our food soulful, fearless. Bloggers posted photos of our plates, deconstructed beef Wellington, lavender-infused panna cotta, dishes I'd spent years perfecting. 6 months later, a food magazine listed Dream in their 50 places to eat before you die. That article changed everything. Tables filled, reservations booked months out. I hired more staff, trained them to chase the same perfection I did. At 31, we earned our first Michelin star. I framed the announcement, hung it in my tiny office, and cried for the first time in years, not from sadness, but from the weight of it all. The second star came a year later, a blur of pride and exhaustion. The third? That was a war. The Michelin inspectors are ghosts, slipping in unannounced, judging every detail, the food, the service, the air itself. Every plate had to be flawless, every night a performance. The pressure was crushing, servers snapping, cooks burning out, me waking up at 3 a.m. to rewrite menus in my head. A single bad night could cost us everything. But we fought, refined, pushed harder. When the third star came, making Dream one of only 15 three-star restaurants in the country, I didn't celebrate. I just sat in the walk-in cooler, staring at my hands, wondering how the kid who'd been laughed out of his home had pulled it off. Dream wasn't just a restaurant. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that the fire in my chest had been worth it. Update 2. The night they walked in. By year 5, Dream was a machine. Booked solid 3 months out. A staff of 20 who moved like a symphony. A menu that told my story, grit, heart, and a little defiance. I'd step back from the line most nights, focusing on training younger chefs, tweaking dishes, dreaming up what came next. But some nights, I'd still cook, needing the heat of the stove to ground me. That night, I was in the kitchen, no reason other than a gut feeling. Around 7 p.m., my head server, Carla, poked her head through the service window, holding the reservation list. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, voice low. She slid the tablet across, pointing to a name, Robert and Diane Marshall. My parents. I froze. They booked under Dad's name, probably hearing about Dream from a friend or a magazine. We'd been in Food and Wine, Bon Appetit, even a Netflix special. But they didn't know I was the owner. How could they? We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, not a call, not a text, not a single word since I'd walked out. To them, I was still the kid who'd thrown his life away. I peered through the service window. There they were, at table 6, near the window with its view of the city lights. Dad, grayer now, in a stiff blazer. Mom, her hair shorter, sipping a glass of Chardonnay. They were laughing, snapping selfies in front of the Dream logo painted on the wall, oblivious to the fact that I was 5 feet away, watching their every move. My hand shook. Not from nerves, but from a decade of buried anger, hurt, and something else, pride. I wanted to walk out, to confront them, to ask why they'd never reached out. But I couldn't. My voice would crack, my eyes would betray me. So I did what I knew best. I cooked. I took over their order, start to finish. Seared scallops with a citrus reduction, braised short rib with truffle mash, a chocolate tart with a pistachio brittle so delicate it shattered at a touch. Every plate was a piece of me, years of sweat, sacrifice, and stubborn belief poured into each bite. I watched from the window as the plates hit their table, as they took their first bites, as their faces lit up. They didn't just eat, they savored. Cleaned their plates. Ordered dessert. When the check came, I grabbed a pen and a slip of paper. My hand trembled as I wrote, "Dinner's on the Dreamer you once laughed at." I tucked it into the leather billfold, told Carla to deliver it, and waited. She came back 10 minutes later, her eyes wide. "They didn't say a word," she said. "Just read it." Sat there, quiet. Your dad looked like he'd seen a ghost. He'd asked to speak to the chef, but I told Carla to politely decline, saying I was tied up in the kitchen. They paid the tip, left, and didn't look back. Final, the silence after the applause. It's been 6 months since that night. No call, no letter, no email. I didn't expect one. My parents are old school, pride runs deeper than regret, and apologies mean admitting they were wrong. I think, deep down, they knew they'd misjudged me. That note wasn't just a jab, it was a mirror, forcing them to see the kid they'd dismissed thriving in a world they'd never understood. I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes energy, and I've spent enough of that. The hurt lingers, though, like a bruise you don't notice until you press it. I think about them sometimes. Dad's stern voice, Mom's quiet disappointment, The way they'd talk about my future like it was theirs to decide. But I don't hate them. I just wish they'd seen me, really seen me, before I had to build an empire to prove I existed. The kid who left home with 2 duffel bags? He made it. I bought a condo 2 blocks from Dream, a small place with big windows and a view of the city skyline. I work 4 nights a week, spending the rest mentoring young cooks, kids like I was, full of fire but scared they'll burn out. I tell them the truth. It's hard, it's lonely, but it's worth it if it's yours. We're opening a second location soon, a bistro with a looser vibe, same heart. More approachable, less pressure, but still Dream. Every now and then, a line cook will ask if it was worth it, leaving everything behind, cutting ties, chasing a goal that could have failed. I always say yes. Not because it was easy, or because I won, but because I chose it. Because every scar, every sleepless night, every missed moment led to a life that's mine. In the end, it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving myself right.